Hi, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Welcome. Welcome. I see people coming in. I really need us to get going real quick. Let's hold up. I'm not going to be doing the intro because time is of the essence for me. And I really want to there's just so many moving parts to this next part of the transcripts. And I think after reading a little bit more and understanding what was happening while we weren't in court, it just makes sense to hit the ground running right away. But before I get started, shout out to everybody in the chat. Hey, I want to shout out. I got a shout out, guys, from Ticket TV. Shout out to everybody from Ticket TV. I woke up to like a bunch of new people. Thank you guys for being here. You guys are amazing. Thank you, Ticket TV, for the shout out. Honestly, like sometimes like bigger creators don't always, BJ is amazing. That surprise witness is amazing. She always gives a shout out. There's creators like that, but it's really really nice when creators give you bigger creators specifically give you a shout out, because it's like, like it's good. Typically it's always been somebody taking something or whatever, not giving you a shout out, but Ticket TV gave us a shout out. So thank you, Ticket TV. Shout out to everybody from there. Yes, thank you. Welcome everybody. Nix, thank you for becoming a member. Shout out to you. Shout out to you, Nix. Thank you. Welcome everybody. Yes, I woke up and I was a little surprised. I said, who are these? Well, we got a little over 1,000 people overnight. So thank you so much, Ticket TV. And yeah, that's amazing. I'm so glad that he gave us a shout out. Okay, guys, we're gonna hit the ground running. Thank you guys for being here. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button. Do me a favor, please support the channel. A super chat, a share, a like. Do all those good things that y'all are doing. As we're getting transcripts, it's always good to put some money aside so that we're able to do what we have to do to get those transcripts. So welcome everybody, and for all my day ones, regulars, please welcome new people. We have new people in the house. Shout out to everybody. Y'all are amazing. So we're going to get started right now. So I did the poll this morning and I wanted to ask everybody, where are we going to start? Who are we going to read? And you guys voted at least highly of George Kaplan. George Kaplan, we're going to call him Immunity George, okay? Now, before we get to George Kaplan, let me just say something, okay? I know it's been rumored that GINA is missing or something to that effect. That's what I heard. That's not the case. They actually did mention GINA on May 21st, which was Wednesday, right? They had a hearing on one of the sidebars. They're having issues with GINA. She doesn't want to show up. All right. So GINA was one of Diddy's girlfriends. He was dating Cassie and GINA at the same time, for those that are coming through. All right. So keep that in mind. GINA is still being discussed among the lawyers. And I'm going to show you guys those transcripts so that we can go. Yeah, she's not missing. She's not. I don't know why people are saying that she's missing, but she's not missing. It's crazy to me. Thank you, Miss. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it for the 199. Ticket peeps in the house. Thank you. I appreciate it. Let me put a heart on that. GINA is not missing, y'all. So I know that people had put that out there. That's not the case. There's no court today. That's right. There's no court today for those that didn't know. And there's no court on Monday. So we are playing catch up. We have so many videos, so many transcript videos to do, and we're going to be working on that this weekend. GINA's not missing. Agnifilo and the defense team, the government is still going back and forth on GINA. So we're going to start right there, because as I was reviewing May 21st transcripts to talk about Kaplan Immunity George, GINA came up in that conversation. Okay, so we're going to get right to that part. Let me show you guys. Hold up. Let's see. We're going to go, is it 21st? Yeah, 21st. And she was mentioned. They were talking about evidence, right? And they were getting into the evidence. Let me put this down. That's right. None of them are, Miss Wendy, none of them are missing. None of them at all. We just got to be very mindful that people aren't going to be missing. I don't know. I'm like, you guys want to go to jail? I mean, they might be victims, don't get me wrong, but they can be forced to testify. This is federal court. They're not playing with anybody at this point. So let me tell you what had happened. All right, I'm going to start here, and I promise I'll acknowledge the chat when I get it a second, okay? So let's go. This is, I want to say, page 252. And let me see. They were going back and forth. Okay. On direct. So this is what happened. So on the 21st, you had Don Hughes, the professional for the government, giving a statement and giving a generalized blind witness, review of DV and people that stay in relationships. Right? You had that lady. After that, it was George Kaplan. Well, and it was very much at the end of the day that George Kaplan was coming in. Well, when George Kaplan finished, the team then decided to talk about GINA. Okay. So right around, I want to say, let's see. At the end of the day, this is Kaplan in direct. Okay. Miss Comey, at the end of the day on May 21st, which is Wednesday, Your Honor, I'm going to see. We are after 3 p.m. So she was cross-examining. She was examining George Kaplan. And then the court was like, all right, well, how many minutes, how much time do you need? And the government is like, I'm going to need like at least an hour and a half. And so this is what the judge is like, okay, it's past 3. I'm going to excuse everybody. Everybody go their way, all right? Okay. So at the very end, this is part of the sidebar. These are the conversations that are happening with the attorneys in the court. Okay. So Agnifilo, sometime around here, after George Kaplan leaves for the day, he's to return the following day. The court then says there is one issue concerning the exhibits that Ms. Slavic for the government, had raised. Is there anything further along those lines, or have there been any further discussions? The government says, my understanding is that the defense continues to object to its admissions. Agnifilo comes in and says, yes, Judge. You took some time? Agnifilo responds, I really didn't. We had testimony since the second I got the exhibits. Okay, so they address the exhibits. Now, Agnifilo pretty much says this, Your Honor, can I put something on the court's radar screen? A bigger issue. This all relates to GINA, who is out of the case. GINA is not coming. So I think the relevance of this has plummeted drastically since we are not going to be having GINA as a witness. The government steps in and says, Your Honor, GINA is very much part of this case. We have plenty of testimony on GINA, and she is certainly relevant. The jury has heard plenty about GINA. In fact, the defense has made her central issue in the relationship between the defendant and Ms. Ventura. Furthermore, GINA is identified in the indictment, and the government is entitled to present proof related to her. Defense, Agnifilo. My point is not an indictment issue. The government can call GINA if it wants to. It might be difficult. It might be hard to do. If they are the United States of America, they can get GINA into the courtroom if that is what they want to do. They are choosing not to. Okay, the court interjects. I'm not sure why that means the exhibit is inadmissible. Agnifilo speaks. Because they are putting in evidence. This is all going to be part of the letter that I'm going to submit to the court. We are now in more than 403 land, that we are in hearsay land on this. Court says understood. Anything further from the government? Government says just one flag, Your Honor. Obviously, we will continue with Mr. Kaplan testimony tomorrow. Okay. The government plans to call, I believe, 5 additional witnesses tomorrow. They should all be relatively short. If the government finishes all 5 witnesses tomorrow, our next batch of witnesses, we expect to have travel across the country. If we manage to get through all 5 tomorrow before and at the end of 3 break, I think the government would, instead of calling its next witness, just ask to end a little bit early on Thursday to plan for travel. If that's the case, we will be ahead of schedule. And I think ending early one day should not set us off schedule. Okay, so they kind of get into the logistics of this. So to be fair, GINA has not been let off the hook. GINA's choosing not to basically respond to the court. And what's going to happen is that, listen, I'm just going to say the unpopular opinion. This is just my opinion. Then we're going to get to the transcripts. People don't ever want to see Cassie. You could say Cassie is a victim, but she's also an unindicted co-conspirator to this case. She had to testify, basically. Keep that in mind. So she's very much a victim, but just like many human trafficking cases, there are victims that can co-inspire to things that then don't want to give a testimony. Okay. Now, this is another thing that I heard. And I'm trying to confirm it further. But if you go to Pacer, there was a sealed letter that was submitted. Something was submitted, and it was submitted under seal. And I'm being told out there, this is what's that victim 2 is submitting letters to the court. Okay, so people are those are the witnesses and victims are getting really, really worried about who I have to go to court. What do I have to do here? What is going on? It's interesting to me because Gina did that interview with Tasha K many years ago, and that went viral, and it's now up and running again. Tasha's being mentioned all over the blogs, right? So it's kind of like, I don't get it, Gina. Like, I get that was very maybe traumatic what she went through, but her refusing to testify in the court, I mean, could that make or break a case? I don't really know. Another thing to also keep in mind is while we've been reviewing these transcripts, there's a number that was thrown out in the transcripts. They have 32 total witnesses. 32. Okay. They've interviewed many. I think there's 17 left total that we know of. Based on the numbers that were said on the transcripts, they have 32 witnesses left. So Gina not wanting to do it, I don't know. I don't think she's off the hook. I think she has to show up. Okay. So why do you guys think in the chat that Gina is not wanting to testify? She was willing to do the interview with the blogs. She's willing to do the interview with the vlog. So what's going on? I have a lot of questions. Okay. So let's start with Immunity George. All right. We call him Immunity George because on the 21st, while Dr. Dawn Hughes was giving her expert blind witness expert thing, Immunity George came into the court. All right. And basically, let me get to that page. I think it's 147. I got this tag right here and queued up. 147. Let's see. Here it is. They were about to go to lunch. Okay. Dr. Hughes, or they were in a break. Dr. Hughes was in a break. They were let out in a break. And they were at lunch at 12:45. And around this time, I was live and we were talking and kind of reviewing everything. Inner City Press tweeted something about somebody seeking immunity. Okay. That's where this person, George Kaplan, comes in. So the court says, anything for the government before we take our lunch break? Ms. Comey for the government. Just to inquire, Your Honor, would like to have Mr. Kaplan come in to invoke. Let's do that right now, the court says. I will ask the agent to bring Mr. Kaplan in then. Your Honor, do you need a hard copy of the order or do you have it? The court responds, do you have an extra hard copy? I do. I'll bring it in. Okay. So I'll ask the court deputy to swear the witness in. George Kaplan, called as a witness by the government. George Kaplan is a witness by the government, hence Immunity George, having been duly sworn and testifies as following. Ms. Comey is directly examining George. Good morning, Mr. Kaplan, or good afternoon, Mr. Kaplan. Did you receive a subpoena requiring you to testify at this trial? Yes. Do you have an attorney who represents you in connection with this matter? Yes. And based on your discussion with your attorney, do you intend to invoke your constitutional right not to testify and not to answer any and all questions put to you at this trial on the grounds of potential self-incrimination? I do. Do you remember that if the court enters an order granting you immunity, that you will be required to answer any and all questions truthfully here today? Yes. Do you understand that that order will not protect you from prosecution for perjury if you make a false statement here today? Yes. Your Honor, I would ask, on the basis of the witness answer to my questions, that you enter the proposed order that we have submitted the court. Let me ask the witness, have you seen a copy of this order? I have not. Ms. Comey, is there any reason that the witness needs to review the order or the application material? I don't believe so, Your Honor, but I have a copy available if he or his attorney would like to review them. Has this attorney reviewed it? He has not, but I can hand him a copy right now. The court says, why don't we give it over to the witness attorney, give him a few seconds to review it, and I'll ask the attorney if there are any further issues to address before the court signs the order. Just give him a moment. Ms. Comey speaks. The attorney has informed me, Your Honor, that he has reviewed the order and that he is satisfied that there's no issue with it. What is the attorney's name? Michael Becker. Michael Becker is the attorney's name, okay? Your Honor, the court says, based on the questions asked and the answers given, the court will execute the order regarding immunity and make it part of the record. Is there anything further, Ms. Comey? No, Your Honor. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Kaplan. We will see you back here this afternoon. All right. So George Kaplan is essentially under immunity. Immunity George. That's what we're calling him. All right. Now we're going to fly over because around this time, they're still cross-examining Don Hughes, who is going to be a separate video. But let's get into Immunity George, and it starts at 2:27. It's already there. Give me one sec, y'all. Who? Oh, that's interesting, Indica. Sorry, y'all. And I'm going to have to take breaks. I'm not going to look at the chat. I promise to acknowledge any super chats or anything like that. Either in the middle or where we're at, because we have a lot of pages to go through, okay? And the only way we can get through this is for me to just not look at the chat, okay? Okay, let's go. Okay, the government may call its next witness. Ms. Comey, who is for the government, is going to be doing the cross. The government calls George Kaplan. May I approach to remove the items? You may. Ms. Comey speaks. Thank you, Your Honor. George Kaplan called as a witness for the government. He is sworn. Direct examination begins. Good afternoon. Hi. How old are you? 34. How far did you go in school? I got a bachelor's degree from the College of Charleston. What was your first job after college? I work at Nickelodeon for 7 months. Let me highlight this. This is interesting. He worked at Nickelodeon. He's with the shits. Okay. What did you do at Nickelodeon for 7 months? I was the executive assistant to the SVP of Creative Operations. What was your job next after that? I was the executive assistant to the chief operating officer of Combs Enterprise. What was your, how did you end up moving from Nickelodeon to Combs Enterprise? My boss moved from Nickelodeon to Combs Enterprise to become the chief operating officer, and I joined him. Who is your boss? His name is Brian Oft. Let's see. When did you move with him to Combs Enterprise? December 2013. When did you stop working for Combs Enterprise? December 2015. What is Combs Enterprise? Combs Enterprise is a holding company that controls the business interests of Sean Combs Company. Could you please explain to the jury what is a holding company, please? Let's see. Could you please explain to the jury what is a holding company, please? It's a company that oversees a bunch of other companies. Often, in the case of Mr. Combs, someone who owns or operates numerous companies will have a company that is responsible and accountable for the success of the other companies, known as a holding company. In the case of Combs Enterprise, could you just give us a general sense of what type of businesses fell under the umbrella of that holding company? Lifestyle businesses, liquor, television, music, clothing. Who ran all of those businesses, Mr. Combs? What was your first job title at Combs Enterprise? The executive assistant to the chief operating officer. What were your duties and responsibilities in that role? They were administrative, scheduling meetings, scheduling phone calls, scheduling executive leadership offsite and travel, things of that nature. Where did you physically work when you had that job title? At 1710 Broadway in Manhattan. For about how long did you have that job title? About 10 months. And then what was your job title at Combs Enterprise? Executive assistant to the chairman. Who is the chairman? Sean Combs. How did you get that job? I was promoted. Do you know why? I think that Mr. Combs noticed my work ethic and attention to detail, and though I couldn't be and thought I could be a value of him professionally. So, about when did you get this promotion? September 2015. Remind us when you left the company? December 2015. Excuse me, let me go back a little bit. So, when did you get this promotion? September 2014. Remind us when you left the company? December 2015. Miss Comey, Miss Comey from the government asked for exhibits to be pulled up. Do you recognize the person in the photograph? Yes. Who is that? Sean Combs. The same Sean Combs we have been talking about? Yes. Do you know him by any other names? Mr. Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, PD? During your time working at Combs Enterprise, what was Mr. Combs' role at Combs Enterprise? He was the chairman. We can take that down. Thank you, Miss Foster. Okay, exhibits are taken down. Who did you personally report to when you were Mr. Combs' assistant? I reported to Christina Coram. Who was the director of the office? I reported to Christina Coram, who was the director of the office. Miss Foster, Miss Foster's asked to put more government exhibits up. Do you recognize the person in that photograph? Yes. Who is it? Christina Coram. The same Christina Coram you were just talking about? Yes. Do you know her by any other name? KK. What was her role within Combs Enterprise? She was the director of Mr. Combs' executive office. And so, what were her job responsibilities? She essentially ran Mr. Combs' life. Miss Comey speaks. You can take that down. And so, they're asking to have a picture taken down. During your time working as Mr. Combs' assistant, who paid your salary? Combs Enterprise. Where did you physically report when you worked as Mr. Combs' assistant? To his home in Los Angeles. Where was that during your time working for him? 200 Mapleton. Generally, what were your duties and responsibilities as Mr. Combs' assistant? I carried his bags. I made sure that they had everything that they might need in them for whatever we were doing or whatever we were going, and also made sure that his homes were organized and had his belongings where he needed them. You mentioned carrying his bags. What were in these bags that you carried? Clothes, medicine, computer, and iPads, sometimes food. Where did you bring these bags? Wherever we were going. When you say we, who do you mean? Mr. Combs? How, if at all, did your duties and responsibilities change as you continued to work for Mr. Combs? I think that as he grew to trust me a bit more, he had me around a bit more. I don't know that day to day duties changed tremendously, but I think that his confidence in my ability to do the things that he wanted continued to improve. So, how did that impact the work that Mr. Combs asked you to do? It broadened the purview of a little bit. I would say I started being around more at the studio and at night and ending nights as opposed to only starting mornings. What did those responsibilities broaden to include, for example? Late nights at the studio, setting up hotel rooms, late night at the house, making sure that everything was shut down after the day was over. On average, about how many hours per week did you work as Mr. Combs' assistant? Between 80 and 100, I would say. What were you paid for? What were you paid for all of that work? I got I was there for 15 months. For the first 12, I got paid 125,000. And I was also paid for the last 3, but I don't know what the total was. It was the same amount over another 3 months. What time would you typically start work each morning? 9:30. How would your day start typically as Mr. Combs' assistant? Arrived at the house, make sure that the chef was ready to make breakfast, that the housekeeper staff was doing what they needed to do, make sure that the office was organized, and then go into his bathroom and make sure that all of his toiletries and toothpaste and medication and you name it were available, facing forward and ready for use. About how long did that process take? About half hour? What time did you generally finish work each day as Mr. Combs' assistant? It varies significantly. I wouldn't say that any 2 days were really the same. What's the earliest that you can remember finishing a day? Maybe 6 p.m., 5 or 6 p.m.? What's the latest that you can remember finishing a day? 6 or 7 a.m.? Why did the time vary so much in your experience? Mr. Combs was recording a mixtape at the time. So he was spending a lot of his time in the recording studio, which necessitated often late nights. How did your nights typically end when you were working as Mr. Combs' assistant? I would unpack the bags from the car. I would make sure that the office was ready to go for the next day. I would make sure that Mr. Combs was taken care of, that his bedroom was set up, that his phone chargers were ready to go, and that he had what he needed. I would get his food if he was hungry, and then I would go home. During your time working for him, during your time working for him, what other assistants, if any, did Mr. Combs have? He had 4 other assistants while I was there. And I recall their names were Ezekiel, Leah, Alex Placenci, Eric Purvis, and Dave Shirley. Let me put these names in the chat if you guys want to look those up. 1 second. I'm going to make sure you guys are coming through, hitting the like button, please, and thank you. I promise to acknowledge the chat when I get a little break here, okay? Thank you. These are the names. If anybody wants to look them up, screenshot them. Does any of them look familiar to you? Let me know. Okay, let me get started, y'all, and I'm not looking at the chat. Shout out to everybody. Shout out to my mods. Thank you. Okay. Government continues. Miss Foster, asking Miss Foster to put some exhibits up. Do you recognize the person in that exhibit? Yes. Who is that? Is it Ezekiel Leah? Is that the same Ezekiel that you were just talking about? Yes. Okay, Your Honor, the government offers this into evidence. Agnifilo says no objection. The court admits all of those documents into evidence or exhibits into evidence, and then asks the court to have them published. Questioning continues. Just remind the jury what this person's role was. An executive assistant to Mr. Combs. Can we take that down? Thank you, Miss Foster, taking exhibits down. And would you please, Miss Foster, put up for the witness, the court, and the parties what's marked for exhibit identification? More government exhibits are offered. Questioning continues. Do you recognize the person in that photograph? Yes. Who is that? That's me. Okay. Your Honor, the government offers this into evidence. Agnifilo has no objection, and items are admitted into evidence. Okay. Let's keep going into the questioning. During your time working for Mr. Combs, what, if any, security personnel also worked for him? There were a few members of his security. There were 2 different teams during my time there. When I started, it was D-Rock, Paul, and Rube. And when I left, there were licensed security guards whose names I don't remember. Let me break that down a bit. Starting with D-Rock. Do you know him by any other names? His first name was Damien. And Rube, did you know him by any other names? Ruben. And Paul, did you know him by any other names? Uncle Polly. When you said that at some point there were licensed security, is that right? Then you said that at some point there were licensed security, is that right? Correct. About when do you remember Mr. Combs hiring what you referred to as licensed security? Sometime in the second half of 2015. Based on your experience working with and observing these security personnel, how did the new security in 2015 compare to the prior security team? They were, I would say, they were more professional. They were more polished. They seemed to have a lot of real time training. When you say they in that sentence, who are you referring to? The new security group. What other employees for Mr. Combs did you regularly interact with during your time as his assistant? Well, the other assistants, Christina Coram, management, his stylist team, the chefs, and the head of his business units. Who within the management team in particular did you work with? James Cruz and Ellie Morion. Put these names in the chat. If you guys know anybody know these names, let me know. Okay, welcome everybody. For those that are coming through, I'm not looking at the chat. I'm just trying to read. Okay, so who within the management team in particular did you work with? James Cruz and Ellie Morion. Okay, government asks, Ms. Foster, would you please pull up what's been marked as exhibits? And questioning continues. Do you recognize the person in that photograph? Yes. Who is that? Ellie Maroon? Your Honor, the government offers this into evidence. No objection from Agnifilo. Okay, exhibits are admitted into evidence. Mr. Kaplan, can you please tell the jury what this individual's role was for Mr. Combs? He was on his management team. Okay, can we take that down? Thank you. Questioning continues. What properties did Mr. Combs own during your time working as his assistant? He had a home in Miami, he had an apartment in New York, and he had a home in Los Angeles. And then I believe he had homes in New Jersey and in the Hamptons as well, though I never went to either of them. During your time working as his assistant, who typically traveled with Mr. Combs? Who typically traveled with Mr. Combs? Assistants, security, sometimes guests or friends or stylists or other people. During your time as Mr. Combs' assistant, how frequently did you communicate with him each day? Multiple times a day. And if you were part, how would you communicate with him? Phone, text, email? And generally, what topics would you and Mr. Combs discuss when communicating multiple times per day? Things that he needed. What kind of things? Generally, something that might be found in the bags, whether it was clothing or potentially food from somewhere, or drugs or liquor or an iPad or a speaker or anything. During your time working for Mr. Combs, what, if any, threats did you remember him making to you? He threatened my job on occasion. About how often do you remember Mr. Combs threatening your job? Maybe monthly? What types of things do you remember Mr. Combs saying when he would threaten your job approximately monthly? That he was only to be surrounded by the best and that those were around him at the time were not performing to that level. What was his tone when he said these things? Sometimes angry, sometimes motivational. What do you remember about the first time Mr. Combs threatened your job? It was my first week on the job, and he asked me to go to Whole Foods to get a BPA free gallon water bottle, and they didn't have it, and I didn't want to be late coming back, so I got 2 half-gallon water bottles to make up the whole gallon, and that was insufficient. How did Mr. Combs respond when you brought him those 2 half-gallon water bottles instead of a 1-gallon water bottle? He told me that I did not bring him what he asked for. And what was his tone? He was angry. How far away from your face was he when he said this to you angrily? He was very close to my face. What, if any, trips do you remember taking with Mr. Combs when you worked as his assistant? Well, we went to New York, to Miami, to Atlanta, to Washington, D.C., to Orlando, to Cabo. Ooh. Let's see. 1 second. How did you get to all those places? Either flew on Mr. Combs' jet with Mr. Combs, or I flew in advance on a commercial flight. Let's break that down. When you say you flew on Mr. Combs' jet, what do you mean? That I traveled with Mr. Combs on his jet for the trip? Is that a private jet that he owned? Yes. When you said you would otherwise do advance, what does advance mean? It means arriving in the city in question before Mr. Combs arrived in order to make sure that his hotel or domicile or whatever is set up properly, and so he can just walk it and have it feel like home, and not no one not like no one had been there for a while. You mentioned earlier that at some point your job responsibilities expanded to include setting up hotel rooms for Mr. Combs. Is that right? Yes. How did you set up those hotel rooms? There was a hotel bag that had seemingly what needed, excuse me, there was a hotel that had seemingly what was needed for hotel stays. So the first time I went, I was just told to take the bag and essentially unpack it. So that's what I did. Do you remember who told you to set up your first ever hotel room for Mr. Combs? No. What was in the bag that you unpacked that first time? Clothes, a speaker, candles, liquor, baby oil, Astroglide? After that first time, what supplies did you bring when you were directed to set up a hotel room for Mr. Combs? I just tried to recreate, the bag. Who brought the supplies? Excuse me, who bought the supplies that you just described for these hotel room setups that you did? Often I did. How did you pay for those supplies? With my corporate credit card. When you say your corporate credit card, what do you mean? Credit card issued to me by Combs Enterprise. About how much notice did you usually get before you needed to set up a hotel room for Mr. Combs? About a matter of hours, probably. Who usually instructed you to set up a hotel room for Mr. Combs? Either Mr. Combs himself or Christina. When you say Christina, do you mean Christina Quorum? Yes. In what city do you remember setting up hotel rooms for Mr. Combs using the supplies that you have listed for us? LA, New York, and Miami? In what hotels in LA do you remember setting up hotel rooms using the supplies you have described for us? The Intercontinental, Mr. C, and the Bel Air Hotel. And there's another one, the name of it, which I can't recall. And in what hotels do you remember setting up hotel rooms using these supplies in New York? Trump. Where's that Trump hotel located? Near Columbus Circle. In Manhattan? Yes. In what hotel or hotels do you remember doing setups like this in Miami? At the SLS. Under what name were these hotels you set up for Mr. Combs usually booked? Under what name were these hotel rooms you set up for Mr. Combs usually booked? Frank Black. Do you know where the name came from? I think it was a reference to Biggie. How so? I think that was his nickname was Frank White. Who else, if anyone, do you remember going to those hotel rooms you set up for Mr. Combs? Nobody. Other than Mr. Combs? Correct. Do you remember knowing whether anyone other than Mr. Combs would go into the hotel's rooms after you set them up? Yes. My understanding was that he would have guests or a partner there. When you say a partner, do you mean a male or a female partner? Or do you know? Female partner. About how long would Mr. Combs stay in a hotel room after you set up for him in this way? 12 hours to a couple of days, maybe? What would you do when Mr. Combs left a hotel room after that time? I would return to it to collect his belongings and make sure that it was in somewhat polished shape from the night before, as far as any pillows or garbage or baby oil being around the room. What do you remember seeing when you went into these hotel rooms after Mr. Combs finished his stay in them? A lot of empty bottles, empty Gatorade bottles, empty liquor bottles, and often baby oil. Where did you see baby oil? On the table, on the floor, on the bed, around the room? And what, if any, powder do you remember seeing in any of these hotel rooms? There was a single occasion where I came across some sort of brown crystallized powder that I didn't know what it was, and I got rid of it. Where was it? It was on the counter of the bathroom sink. And what cleanup, if any, did you do in these hotel rooms after Mr. Combs left? I tidied them. I made it as close as I could to look like it was the way that it was when it was found when he left, when he came in. Why did you do that instead of having, say, the hotel staff do that? I think it was implied in the role as you continue to work closely with Mr. Combs that protecting him and protecting his public knowledge, they said public knowledge, that protecting him and protecting his public knowledge were really important. And that was certainly nothing that I was, and that was certainly nothing that I was very keen on doing. Hold on, let me repeat that. They have a typo on the transcripts. I think they meant to say public image, but I'm going to reread that. I think that it was implied in the role as you continue to work closely with Mr. Combs that protecting him and protecting his public knowledge were really important. And that was certainly nothing that I was very keen on doing. Okay. Yeah, there's a typo there. How was cleaning up these hotel rooms connected to protecting Mr. Combs? Agnifilo speaks. I'm going to object to this line, Judge. Court says that's overruled. You can answer. Can you repeat the question, please? Sure. How was cleaning up these hotel rooms related to your job responsibilities of protecting Mr. Combs? I would see often at some point during that time that people, hotels, would sell videos and images to newspapers to try to embarrass celebrities or other public figures. And that was something I would always wanted to avoid. Did you ever personally see Mr. Combs' guests after they left these hotels? No. During these hotel stays, what would you do? I would go home. Why would you go home? I would take a rest. About how often would Mr. Combs contact you during one of these hotel stays? Infrequently. When he did contact you from these hotel stays, how did he contact you? Usually text or phone. What do you remember Mr. Combs asking you to do on the few occasions he reached out to you during one of these hotel stays? Bring him something that he did not have? What kind of things do you remember him asking you to bring? Food, clothes, and a couple of occasions, drugs? What did you do in response? Hold up. Let me make sure I know how to say this word. Y'all. Welcome, everybody. And this will give me some time to also drink some water. I acquiesced. Okay. What did you do in response? I acquiesced, meaning I did what he asked me to do. All right. Let me highlight this so I can look at this a little bit further. Picking up on drugs. What, if any, drugs did you personally see Mr. Combs possess during your time working as his assistant? He had a medicine bag, a DOP kit that had tons of different pills, prescriptions, and other things in there. What drugs do you remember seeing inside of that med kit? Advil, Tylenol, ketamine, Wellbutrin. Any others? Not specifically. What, if any, other illegal drugs do you remember seeing Mr. Combs possess? I'm going to have to object to the term illegal, Judge. Miss Comey says, fair enough. I'll rephrase. I apologize. All right. Questioning continues. Other than over-the-counter drugs like Advil and Tylenol, what, if any other types of drugs do you remember seeing Mr. Combs possess during your time as his assistant? Nothing beyond that bag. Nothing beyond what was in the med bag. So you mentioned ketamine, Advil, Tylenol, Wellbutrin. I'm sure that there were other things in the bag specifically, but I wasn't necessarily going through the prescriptions. You mentioned there were times that Mr. Combs asked you to get drugs for him. What drugs did he ask you to get for him? He never asked me specifically to get a certain kind of drug. There were two occasions where I picked up drugs on his behalf. Do you remember on either occasion what kind of drug you picked up? Yeah, one time were MDMA. Was that the only time that you were ever aware of him possessing MDMA? Or were there other times you were aware of him possessing MDMA? That was the only time that I was aware. You said there were two times that you personally picked up drugs from Mr. Combs. Correct. Who asked you to pick up those drugs, Mr. Combs? Where did that happen? In what cities do you remember these things happening? LA and Miami? Let's start with Miami. Where were you when Mr. Combs instructed you to pick up drugs for him? Somewhere at his house? Where was Mr. Combs? At his house? What did Mr. Combs ask? What did Mr. Combs say to you? He gave me a number to call and some cash to pick up what he wanted. What did you do with the phone number? I called it. And then what happened? The guy came. I paid him for the drugs. You say the guy came to the house? To the house? What do you mean by that? To the outside of the house. The person you had called came to whose house? Mr. Combs' house. Did you meet him? Yes. What did you give this person? Cash. Where did the cash come from, Mr. Combs? And what did this person give you in exchange? A bag of pills. What kind of pills do you understand them to be? MDMA? What did you do with the MDMA? I gave it to Mr. Combs. Now let's talk about the time in LA. Where where were you when Mr. Combs made this request for you? At the Bel Air Hotel. What did Mr. Combs say to you? It was a very similar exchange as far as call this number, go meet this person, pick this up, and bring it back to me. So, what did you do? That when you called the number, what did you arrange to do? I arranged to meet the person in Hollywood. After that phone call, where did you go? Hollywood. And what happened in Hollywood? I gave him money. He gave me a bag. I don't know what the bag was. By him, do you mean the person you called on the phone? Yes. Was this the same person who had dropped off the MDMA in Miami or a different person? A different person. What did you give this person when you met him in Hollywood? Cash. Where did the cash come from? Mr. Combs. What did you get in exchange? A bag. What did you do with the bag? I gave it to Mr. Combs. Your Honor, I see that we are after 3. I'm happy to stop or keep going. How much time do you have left? I have well beyond 5 minutes. Your Honor, I think I at least have half an hour. Let's stop today. We will come back tomorrow. Okay, let's pause right here. So this is again May 21st. This was the first day that George Kaplan was testifying. Okay, watch the beginning of this video if you're just coming in, because I'm not going to repeat what I said earlier. And for those that are watching on the replay or watching late, please note that I am there's going to be timestamps on this video, so you don't have to hear me talk. You just want to go directly to the transcripts, just go to the transcripts and do that. All I ask you guys to do is hit the like button, support whatever you can do. I'd appreciate it. Okay, let's go to May 22nd. May 22nd. So May 21st was Wednesday. May 22nd, Thursday. And we're going to start with George Kaplan, who was still under direct examination or direct. And we're going to start right there. Hold up. Let me pull the other transcript up. Okay. I share the screen. I promise to acknowledge super chats and all this other stuff here in a minute. Just give me a minute, okay? I want us to get through this because May 22nd starts at page 20. Nope, this is May 21st. Oh, okay. I got to close this down. May 22nd starts at page 21 when they start going back and forth on this. Let's see. '21. want to see something else too, because so Thursday morning, for those that watched the Kid Cudi video yesterday, the attorneys on Thursday morning, before they went in with Mr. Kaplan, because remember, they had started Wednesday with Kaplan, they continued with Kaplan on Thursday morning, and then they started with Kid Cudi. They were arguing in the morning, Thursday morning, about Kid Cudi. Drop a 1 in the chat if you want us to go to that part with Kid Cudi. And then they were talking about concerns about exhibits as well. You get a lot of information about what is happening in the back and forth on these let's see, they talk about the break-in. So they were arguing already they were like ready to say something. And remember, don't forget that Brian Steele, during Kid Cudi's cross-examination, he wanted to call a mistrial on the Diddy trial. He wanted to call a mistrial, and the judge basically had to tell him, sit your ass down. You're not doing that in my court. You're not making me aware of, you're not predicting about what a person's going to say. Okay? That's what he did. Okay. Let me see. Where are we at? Oh, yes. Okay. So I'll give you guys a little bit of, because it's a lot. But I'm going to give you guys just some insight into what was said about Kid Cudi, okay? So they start basically by objecting about the dog. For those that were watching on Thursday, there was issues. They were arguing in the morning. Inner City Press was putting this out here of like, well, you can't get into the mind of the dog. Like, he's not a dog psychic. Let's start right there. So, Your Honor, Mr. Cudi will certainly testify about the location of the dog that he came home, because that's relevant to his understanding of whether someone had been in his home or not, because his dog had been locked up when he left his home. I do think his observations about his dog after are relevant to the effect of this break-in on him. This is the primary thing. And then basically the court says he's not going to testify about what the dog thought. Government. He's not going to testify about what the dog thought. Certainly not. He is not a dog psychic. And the court says he's going to say that the visible demeanor of the dog was different than it was usually. And given that that's his dog, he would know what his dog usually acts like. It says correct. So they're still objecting, especially still. I will object. I don't see why they're getting into what a dog. The thing about the defense, they had issues with jurors that might be dog lovers or might have sympathy of people with dog. Like if you hear that a dog has been harmed, that could potentially make somebody biased of like, oh my God, you did this. Not only did you do this, but you hurt this dog. So that was the biggest thing that they went back and forth on it. And they were objecting under 403. Okay. So let's keep going. Let's see. Because I'm going to try to, let's go to Kaplan so we can get that going. Okay. And maybe I'll do a separate video to deep dive on this. Like I said, a lot of these people that were in there, they were really arguing on separate things. But for the sake of time, we're going to go right here. Okay. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you. Okay, so George Kaplan is back on the stand. Ms. Comey continues her cross-examination. I would like to pick up where we left off yesterday, talking about some of your job responsibilities and tasking that you carried out as Mr. Combs' assistant. How often, if at all, did you carry cash for Mr. Combs when you were his assistant? Very infrequently. How would that come about on those infrequent occasions? There was an occasion where security in New York gave me a bag of cash to hold while we were in the air on a jet, on Mr. Combs' jet, and then landed and handed it to the security who was on the ground meeting us. And then let me pause. Let me pause you. Hold up, y'all. Let me clear my throat. Okay. She says, let me pause and just ask you about that one, if that's okay. Do you remember about when that was? Sometime in 2015? Do you remember who the security personnel were who handed you the cash or you handed the cash to? No. But it was Mr. Combs' security. Yes. And how much cash, if you know, did security have you hold for them on Mr. Combs' jet? I was told it was 50,000. Were there ever any other times that security had you carry such a large amount of cash for Mr. Combs, or was that the only time you recall? That's the only time I recall. And then what other times, if any, were there when Mr. Combs had you carry large amounts of money, large amounts of cash for him? I didn't carry them, but I went to Western Union a couple of times to pick up cash and give it to Mr. Combs, but not understood. I apologize for using the word carry, pick up. About how many times did you remember picking up cash from Mr. Combs at Western Union? Two or three times? And how much cash did you pick up from Western Union for Mr. Combs each time? 10,000. Let me zoom in a little bit. Do you know where the 10,000 was being Western Union from? Combs Enterprise? Combs Enterprise? Yes. When you pick up that cash each time at Western Union, what did you do with it? Gave it to Mr. Combs. I want to take a step back, Mr. Kaplan, and just talk about your testimony here today. Did you receive a subpoena requiring you to testify at this trial? Yes. And is there also an immunity order compelling you to testify, even if your testimony might incriminate you? Yes. What is your understanding of what the order requires you to do? To testify truthfully and allow for this testimony to not be used against me? Let's break that down. First, you're required to tell the truth here. Yes. If you do that, what is your understanding of the protections that the order gives you? That my testimony cannot be used against me. Does this order protect you from prosecution for any crimes you may have committed in the past, as far as you know? No. Does this order protect you if you lie here today? No. In other words, can you still be prosecuted for perjury if you lie here today? Yes. I want to turn now to a different topic. What, if any, long term romantic partners were you aware of Mr. Combs having during the time that you worked for him? Cassie, Miss Porter, there was a woman named Gina. Let's take each of those in turn. I would like to start with Kim. Based on your interactions with her and Mr. Combs, what was your understanding of who Kim was? She was the mother of Mr. Combs' children and very important figure of his life. And then you mentioned Cassie. Who was she, as far as you understood? Mr. Combs' girlfriend. Then you mentioned a woman named Gina. Who was she? She was another one of Mr. Combs' girlfriends. What, if any, social relationships did you have with those three women? Very little, if any at all. Okay, more exhibits are to be entered. Ms. Foster enters exhibits to the government. Questioning continues. Mr. Kaplan, do you recognize the person in that photograph? Yes. Who is that? Cassie. Do you know her by any other names? Cassie Ventura. You can take that down, Ms. Foster. Thank you. Thank you. Questioning continues. But how often, Mr. Kaplan, do you remember seeing Cassie in person during your time as Mr. Combs' assistant? Very regularly. About how often did you see Cassie when she was not physically with Mr. Combs? Irregularly. Did it ever happen that much? Not really. How many times, if at all, did you witness Mr. Combs be physically violent with Cassie? Once. I'd like to talk to you about that time, please. Can you remember about when this happened? It was in the second half of 2015. Where were you when this happened? On Mr. Combs' jet? On his private plane? Yes. Who else was on the jet with you? Other team members, security, management? I don't remember exactly. Let's break that down. You were on the jet? Yes. And security was on the jet? Yes. And you said other team members were on the jet? Yes. And other than those people, who else was on the jet? Mr. Combs and Cassie. Where was the jet flying to? Las Vegas? Could you describe for the jury what the layout of the jet was? Sure. You walk up the steps, and at the top of the steps, if you look left, it's the cockpit. If you look right, there are 4 captain chairs, 2 and 2 facing one another. As you continue down, if you're facing on the right side, there is a picnic table with more seats. There is a bench facing that. And then you run into a partition with 2 sliding doors, and then there was a bathroom or a bed area in the back. So behind the partition, there was a bed area. Yes. Before the violence you witnessed started, where were you on the jet? I was sitting at the picnic table with my back to the door. By the door, do you mean that the partition that partition you talked about? Yes. And who's behind the partition? Mr. Combs and Cassie. How is the partition positioned? It was ajar and it was more open than it was closed. So what part of the back of the plane were you able to see from where you were sitting? I had a partial view over my right shoulder into the back. So was so was in front of you on the plane towards the cockpit everyone else. So security, everyone else who was traveling with you was further to the front of the plane. Correct. How did you first notice that something was happening? I heard a glass break. From what direction did you hear the glass break? Behind me. Can you describe the sound you heard? It was a glass crash shatter. What did you do when you heard that the glass shattered? I looked over at my right shoulder, and what did you see in the back of the plane when you looked over at your right shoulder? I saw Mr. Combs standing over Cassie. Can you describe for us how Cassie's body was positioned? Yeah. She was on her back and her legs were extended up in a way that would indicate that she was trying to create space between the two of them. Was she lying on her back on the floor? Yes. And what was Mr. Combs doing? He was standing above her, over her. What, if anything, was in his hand? He had another glass in his hand and he was holding it up. He was holding it up above Cassie? Yes. What did the glass look like? It was a whiskey rocks glass. As this was happening, what, if any, voices could you hear from the back of the plane? I mean, there was tremendous commotion and scuffle, and then after the glass crash, Cassie screamed, "Isn't anybody seeing this?" Did Mr. Combs say anything before Cassie said, "Isn't anybody seeing this?" I don't know. Did you hear his voice at all during this interaction? Yes. Do you remember what words he said? No. Do you remember what his tone of voice was? He was angry. After you looked back and saw Mr. Combs standing over Cassie with the glass in his hand, what did you do? Nothing. Did you look away? Yes. After you looked away, what did you hear? Further glass crashing and chaos? At what point in all of this did Cassie say, "Isn't anybody seeing this?" Maybe a second or two after I turned my head back forward. Did anyone respond to her? No. You said you did nothing. What did security do? Nothing. Why didn't you intervene, Mr. Kaplan? I was 23 years old, and all I wanted to do was to have a great job in the entertainment industry. I could not believe my good fortune would be working for such an icon. And the last way I thought that I would be successful in that career would be to compromise his well-being in any way. Did you ever call the police to report what you saw? No. Why not? Give me 1 second, y'all. Let me stop here. I need a drink. Guys, hit the like button, please, and thank you. Let me unblock this. Thank you. I promise to acknowledge super chats. Let me look up a word real quick just so I understand how they're using it. Apropos. Okay. Apropos of what I just saw would have not been keeping with what I was trying to accomplish professionally? Give me one sec, y'all. Okay. Apropos of what I just saw, it would not have been keeping me with what I was trying to accomplish professionally. What did Mr. Combs do after you heard the last glass shatter? He came into the front section of the plane and sat in one of the captain's chairs. Before he came to the front of the plane, what, if anything, did you hear him say? He told Cassie to stay in the back. When he came to the front of the plane, what was his demeanor? Pretty even keeled? So he was calm? Yeah. After he came to the front of the plane, who was in the back of the plane? Cassie. Was anyone with her? No. Did anyone go to check on her? No. How much longer did the flight last? Less than an hour. What do you remember happening in Las Vegas after the flight? Mr. Combs had a club appearance. We went to the hotel that we were staying at. He and Cassie got ready. I don't remember if it was together or separately. And then Mr. Combs went to the club. All the staff went with him. And then I went back to collect Cassie when she was ready to bring her to where Mr. Combs was. Did you bring Cassie to Mr. Combs at the club? I don't remember specifically dropping her off next to him, but I remember bringing her to the table where we were all anchored. Can you just explain what a club appearance is, please? A club appearance is when a club hires a celebrity to show up for promotional purposes to attract other guests and club goers. After this incident, how many times, if any, did you see Cassie with bruising or injuries on her face? One time. About when was this? Also, the second half of 2015? Was it before or after the plane incident we just discussed? After. Where did this happen? I saw her in Mr. Combs' home. In which home? Los Angeles. Can you explain to us how you came to see Miss Ventura with injuries on her face? On her? Yes, Mr. Combs called me via intercom to come see him upstairs. I thought that was his bedroom. He was actually in his bathroom. I entered his bedroom. Cassie was crying on the bed with her head in her hands. I walked past her without saying anything to her and met Mr. Combs in the bathroom. Let me ask you some follow-up questions about that. You said Mr. Combs called you via intercom. What do you mean by that? Like a PA system in the house. And then Mr. Combs' bathroom, and then Mr. Combs' bedroom connected to his bathroom in that house? Yes. When you went into the bedroom, can you explain what you saw in a bit more detail, please? Cassie was on the bed. She was clearly upset. Her head was in her hands. It was clear that there was bruising near her right eyebrow and her forehead where her hands were not covering her face. And I was in that room for less than 3 seconds. Where did you go after seeing Cassie on the bed with injuries on her face? To Mr. Combs. And what happened when you went to Mr. Combs? He asked me to go pick up several over-the-counter lotions, that lotion remedy kind of, some kind, which I later came to learn were to be mixed together to act like an anti-swelling agent. What ingredient do you remember Mr. Combs asking you to get specifically? The one that I remember is witch hazel. What did you do after Mr. Combs instructed you to pick up these ingredients? I picked them up. Where? At CVS. How did you pay for them? With my corporate credit card. Your Combs Enterprise credit card? Correct. Where did you bring them? To Mr. Combs. When did you stop working for Mr. Combs, Mr. Kaplan? December of 2015. Why did you decide to leave your job as Mr. Combs' assistant? Well, the central reason that I left my job as Mr. Combs' assistant was that I was not comfortable or aligned with the physical behavior that had been going on that I had seen pieces of over the course of months. When you say the physical behavior, what are you referring to? The plane incident in question, the bedroom incident in question, having to be responsible for fixing those types of things and being assisting the fixing. It was extremely challenging because I obviously was extremely grateful to be in the role and had and have a great deal of respect for Mr. Combs. And it was extremely vexing. But in my heart of hearts, I knew it was the right thing to do. You reference having to fix things. What do you mean by that? Like being asked to go get witch hazel and just being party to any of that this type of stuff. What do you make the final decision, excuse me, when did you make the final decision to leave to leave as Mr. Combs' assistant? My dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. He lives in Boston. Being so far away, it was unattainable for me. And given the rest of what's been described, that was the best choice for me. Was it just the two incidents with Cassie that led you to that decision, or did something else happen? There were other incidents. What are the other incidents? There was one incident where in the Miami house, Mr. Combs threw a number of decorative or real green apples at another girlfriend. Which other girlfriend was this? Gina. I want to talk about that, please. You asked this was I want to talk about that. You said that this was at the Miami home? Yes. What's the address of that home? 2 Island Star. One second, y'all. I'm gonna have to get some cough drops after this, y'all. 2 Island Star. Give me one second. And what time of day did you see this happen? Late at night. Where on the 2-star property did you see this happen? In the entryway of the main home? And what did you see in the entryway of the main home? Mr. Combs was very angry and he was throwing these green apples that lived in a decorative vessel of some kind in the main entryway. Where was Mr. Combs throwing these apples? At Gina? How hard was he throwing these apples? Hard. What was his demeanor as he was throwing these things? He was very angry. And who was he throwing them at? Gina. How was Gina reacting? She was trying to shield herself with her arms and she was moving away from him. What did you do in response? I left. Why didn't you intervene? For all the same reasons I mentioned before, just a young kid really trying to make it in the entertainment industry. This was essentially my first professional endeavor. And I actually thought for a second that it might be normal. This is what I could expect if I wanted to have a career in this industry. So I was sort of working all of that out in real time as a young man. When is the next time you saw Mr. Combs after that incident? Later that night? What happened later that night? He intercommed me to ask me if I would bring him his medicine bag. What did you do in response? I brought him his medicine bag. To where? His bedroom. What happened when you went to Mr. Combs' bedroom? He received the bag from me and he asked me to leave. Can you describe what was going on in the bedroom when you walked in? Yeah, there was definitely some tension. Gina was standing in a corner of the room on the other side, like very far away, and Mr. Combs knew why I was coming to the room. So he was not upset with me for coming to the room, but he wanted me to leave the room once I gave him the medicine bag. What was his demeanor? He was seemingly on edge. When is the next time you heard Gina's voice after that? A while later, also in the middle of the night, there was commotion near the front gate of Mr. Combs' home where I heard her voice. Where were you when you heard Gina's voice near the front gate to 2-star? I was in my bed in the guest house. Where is the guest house relative to the front gate? It is closer to it than the main house. And if you are entering the front gate, it's on the left in the driveway. What did you hear Gina saying in the middle of the night near the gate? I didn't hear any specific words, but again, it was a lot of commotion and a lot of screaming and back and forth. Who else did you hear outside near the gate with Gina? I heard other male voices, which I deemed to be Mr. Combs' security. For about how long did you hear this going on? Less than a minute? Is it possible to get out of 2-star without someone opening the gate for you? Or you opening the gate yourself if you know the code? No, I don't believe so. If you don't know the code, is it possible to get out of the property at 2 star? I don't remember if there was a button for the gate or not. That would have been the way that someone would have gotten out without the code. What did you do after you heard this commotion at the gate? Nothing. Why nothing? Because I didn't because I wish it wasn't happening, because I didn't want to be involved with it, and because I really, really wanted to have a successful career in the entertainment industry, and standing in the way of that was not my way to succeed. Do you remember about when in 2015 this happened? Second half of 2015? Was it before or after the two incidents you describe involving Cassie? After. And when did you leave Mr. Combs Enterprise? December 2015. How long did you stay at Combs Enterprise after giving notice that you were going to leave Combs Enterprise? 3 months. And when did you officially give notice that you were going to leave Combs Enterprise? September 2015. And how soon after this incident with Gina you have just described did you give the notice? Within a month. After the incident with Gina, who did you speak to the next morning? I spoke with Brian Oft and Sandy Humphrey. Let me put these names in the chat. These people, let me put these names in the chat because I want to make sure I collect these names. These are like heads of this organization, okay? For those that are, these are heads, important names. Keep in mind of the names that these immunity George is dropping, because I think that this is important. It makes you wonder who they're going to be, who else might be next on as a witness. Okay, I spoke to Brian and Sandy Humphrey. I spoke to Christina Coram. I remember those conversations. Which of those was in person? Christina. And is that the person we talked about called KK? Yes. What did you tell KK? I gave her a recount of what I had observed that night. Did you tell her everything you have just told us? Yes. What, if anything, did you tell her about what you had observed on the jet involving Cassie? I had just told her each time that I had witnessed any sort of violent act. So let's break that down. You did tell KK about the incident on the jet. Yes. You did tell KK about the time you saw bruising on Cassie's face. I don't remember. And did you tell KK about the incident that you saw involving Gina? Yes. How did she respond when you told her these things? She was sad. She was disappointed. What did you tell her the morning after this incident involving Gina? That this was going to be the last straw for me and that I was going to see my way out of this role over the next period of time. How did she respond when she told you that? She was disappointed. We were very friendly and we worked really closely together. And I think she was sad about the whole situation. And how much longer did you stay with Combs Enterprise after you told Christina that this was the last straw for you? 4 months. What did you tell Mr. Combs about the decision to quit? I told him that my dad was sick and that I needed to be closer to him. How did he respond? He was extremely gracious. After you left Combs Enterprise in December of 2015, what did you do? I moved back to my mom's house for 3 months and kind of collected myself. And then I moved back to New York and got a job at an integrated marketing firm. What do you mean you collected yourself? I needed to dig pretty deep to sort of compartmentalize the experience for what it was, which I learned an incredible amount from. At that time, it was the most incredible thing that had ever happened to me in my life. There was a lot of cognitive dissonance trying to uh, parse apart the different pieces and what they all meant and how I could sort of be okay moving forward in my life. What's the last time you saw Mr. Combs in person before the pandemic? Do you remain in touch with him after you left? Yes. Why is that? Because I like Mr. Combs and I wanted to continue having a relationship with them. May I have a moment, Your Honor? The court responds, you may. No further questionings from the government. All right, cross-examination. Let me take a little break here. I'm going to try to fly through this real quick, but I want to acknowledge some folks because I don't want to be behind. Nix, thank you for becoming a member. Joe, thank you so much for this. Nix, thank you for this. Is it Tequila? Tequila. I like your name. $5. Thank you so much for this. I appreciate you, love. Belinda, thank you. Thank you. Didi gifted 5 memberships. Have you been blessed by any of my beautiful, wonderful members? Put some hearts in the chat or some confettis. I can't do the reactions because I'm using the other screen share. But thank you, Didi. I appreciate you. Robbins, thank you, thank you. Look at me this morning. Yeah, we tearing it up, Robbins. Thank you, thank you. Pinche Becky also gifted 5 memberships. Shout out to Pinche Becky. Guys, make sure you put some hearts, some confettis if you've been gifted or blessed by anybody. V. McWilliams, why hasn't anyone covered the Prince tapes that were admitted in court regarding Diddy parties? I found them very telling. Oh, I didn't even know they had that. That's interesting. Thank you. Empowered Wendy, thank you. Let's play follow the leader and do a couple. Aw, thank you so much, Empowered Leader. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, y'all. Whew. Let me take a drink of my grape soda. Hit the like button, please, and thank you. I'd appreciate it. You can always support the channel by Super Chat, Cash App, do all those beautiful things that we do so we're able to move forward with transcripts. I really appreciate the support, guys. Thank you. All right, let's keep working because see if we can get through cross, okay? Thank you. Oh, my God, Belen. Thank you. Continue to help out with the transcript fund. These are so necessary to fill in all the gaps. Great job, Rabbit. Thank you, Belen, my love. Thank you, thank you. Yo, Belen got me some readers. Thank you, Belen. When I'm doing late nights, I be using the readers. Thank you, Belen. Appreciate it. Okay, let's get it together. Cross-examination. All right, here comes the almighty Agnifilo. Good morning, Mr. Kaplan. Good morning. My name is Mark Agnifilo. I'm one of Combs' lawyers. I'm going to ask you some questions. I don't think it's going to be terribly long. We will get you out into the rain. If I ask you a question that you don't understand, if you want me to rephrase that question, all you need to do is ask, and I'll do that. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. I want to ask you about something that you said to my colleague at the U.S. Attorney's Office. You said working with Mr. Combs was the most incredible thing that happened in your life. At that time, yes. I just want to tell the jury why you gave that answer. I think like a lot of the people in their early 20s, even those of whom who have gone to college, their world is extremely small. When I moved to New York City after the college, I was looking up at the buildings and I couldn't believe how big the world was and how small I was in it. And after working for Mr. Combs, it made my world so much bigger in such a short period of time, and the amount of knowledge that I gained from both from a business perspective, but also just in a way of living with was so much every day that it was almost like drinking from a fire hose, not in a bad way, but in a particular overwhelming way, but in many ways was positive. Thank you. Long-winded answer. And tell us about the business perspective that you said part of the answer you just gave relative to your perspective on the business. Just tell us, the jury, why you gave that part of the answer. Yeah, the reason that I was excited to take the role in the first place is because Mr. Combs is obviously an enormous business mogul across numerous industries. I had been a fan of him since I was a child, and to be frank, I keep lessons from him to this day from a business perspective that I use in my career every day. He taught me to have the work ethic that I have, understanding that no job was too big or too or small. And frankly, without a bunch of these lessons, I don't believe that I would have had the jobs that I've had since then. I find when I interview young people, none of these people understand that. And I'm very grateful for having learned those lessons from him. I think you said yesterday that you were promoted. When you started working for Mr. Combs, at one point you got promoted. If I remember correctly, I think my colleague said, well, why were you promoted? You said, I think he recognized how hard that I worked. Do you remember? Do you remember all that? Yes, sir. You're a hard worker? Yes. And you knew when you started working with Mr. Combs, it was going to be hard work, right? Yes, the line was you're going in eyes wide open, which is ironic because I was not. And as it turned out, but I did as far as the business and the hours and the type of stuff was concerned. When you started working, hold up, I messed this up. Give me 1 second. So his question, Agnifalo's question was, and you knew when you started working with Mr. Combs, it was going to be hard, right? And he responds, yes, the line was, you're going in eyes wide open, which is ironic because I was not, as it turns out, but I did as far as the business and the hours and the type of stuff was concerned. Okay. Agnifalo then questions, when you started working, I just want to get the seg of things. So you knew Brian off to before you knew Mr. Combs. Correct. He hired me out of college to be his assistant at Nickelodeon. And tell us very briefly, what did you do at Nickelodeon? Purely administrative duties like scheduling travel, scheduling meetings, scheduling phone calls, sitting at a desk from 9 to 5 and 5:01, coming up and me saying, I'll see you tomorrow. Okay. Mr. Brian came over to Mr. Combs Enterprise and you came with Brian? Correct. When when you first got to Combs Enterprise, what was your job description then? Same administrative duties. The one difference was that because Brian was one sort of accountable for Mr. Combs, the success of Mr. Combs' business unit and all of the heads of those units reported to him. I just got more into broader executive planning and planning group events for all the executives because Brian was in charge of them. Whereas at Nickelodeon, he was not. So those types of things were not in my purview. Because Brian, I'll call him Brian. You called him Brian, so I'll call him Brian. When Brian came to Mr. Combs Enterprise, he had what was his role? He was the chief operating officer. And from what you could see, what was involved in that job description, from what we could see, ensuring the profitability and smooth operation of each of Mr. Combs' holdings. And what was your role in helping Mr. Brian do that? Making sure that he was in the right place at the right time, making sure that he wasn't running terribly over on phone calls and sticking onto his schedule, making sure that if he had meetings outside of the office, give me 1 sec, guys. Sorry, y'all. I had somebody at my door. Um, Making sure that he was in the right place at the right time, making sure that he wasn't running terribly over a phone call and sticking to his schedule, making sure that if he had meetings outside of the office, his car was ready, he was in and out of the door, getting him lunch, scheduling travel. That at some point you got promoted from the job, from to a different job to Mr. Combs' assistant. And how long were you working with with Combs Enterprise when you got promoted to being Mr. Combs' assistant? 10 months. And you said, I know you just said that you just said it. I just want to sort of start us off again. Part of the reason you thought you got promoted is Mr. Combs recognized your hard work, right? Correct. You were you were working very hard. Correct. What led you to conclude that Mr. Combs recognized your hard work? Brian told me. How much time did you spend with Mr. Combs before you got promoted? Ballpark. Like certainly less than 10 hours, probably closer to 5. He came to New York one time and his assistant kind of tried me out. Like I went to get him coffee and I bought him a cup of tea at a Starbucks cup and it wasn't in a tea service. And I remember that moving forward, those types of things. And while you were working with Mr. Brian before you became Mr. Combs' assistant, you did work very hard, correct? Yes. And from what you could see from your time at Combs Enterprise, not everyone worked as hard as you did, correct? Correct. And so you said that with a certain emphasis that I don't know that the record kept up, excuse me, that the record picked up. So tell the jury what you mean by that answer. As I describe myself in Nickelodeon, being someone who stood up at 5 to leave, I kind of kicked that at Mr. Combs Enterprise because it was inspirational and motivational, and I was so happy to be there. I would actually find myself staying there late after Brian, which was kind of like the start of this whole thing. But I can't say that that was true for everybody who worked there by any means. I also worked on the executive floor with Brian, which was seemingly a very different experience than people who worked for different brands on other floors. You mentioned different brands. What were the different brands? Revolt was in there until they got a new office. Blue Flame, the marketing agency, was there. The head of Sean John had an office there. The head of Ciroc, I think, had an office there. There were certainly different businesses all operating over those floors in that building. Let's go. Let's go through some of them. Um, I want to know what your experience is with the various ones. Revolt. Tell the jury what Revolt is. It's a cable news network that focuses on music and hip hop specifically. What, if any, connections did you have? Not connections. What work did you do in connections with Revolt? The head of Revolt at the time, uh, Keith Clinkscales, reported to Brian. So to that extent that I was scheduling meetings for Keith and Brian. Brian was also on the board, and I think if I remember correctly, of Revolt. So he was going to board meetings and things like that. I was also an employee of the company when Revolt launched, which they had been working on for a long time. So that was a very exciting day. Obviously, that was everyone saw all of their really hard work come to fruition. So that was exciting. You were there when Revolt launched, correct? Um, tell the jury that. We were all in a conference room on the sixth floor of Bad Boy offices on 1710 Broadway. Anyone who was on the producing the launch of the television, kind of in the room, and people were having cocktails. Mr. Combs, I think, opened the station from Biggie's doorstep in Brooklyn. If I remember that correctly, I'm not positive on that one, but it was an extremely momentous occasion. In your view, why was it momentous? It was momentous because we all worked for Mr. Combs, and this was his thing, and everyone and most people had contributed in some way. So I think that people felt good about that. I also think that Revolt came through an initiative. I don't have all the details, all the information, but it came through. It came about through a cable company initiative where cable companies were trying to give voices to most diverse groups, and Revolt ended up being a fruit of that experience. So it was important. Tell me if this is right. Diversity was an important feature of Revolt, correct? Yes. Everything that Mr. Combs did and does, diversity is a very important part of it, especially for African American people. How especially did, how specifically, excuse me, how specifically did that express itself in Revolt from what you could see? Could you rephrase? Yeah, that was a terrible question. I'm going to ask a less terrible one. From what you could see, what about Revolt? Let me try it. Let me try again. I said I would get you out soon. That's all good. Okay. You said that Revolt had aspects of diversity to it. Just tell the jury what that was. And let me get back. Let me back up 1 second. I am going to ask you to try to put all back there. None of us worked there. You did. Give us the feel. Give us what it's like. You're in a conference room. You're having cocktails. This thing launched. Give us a feeling of what it was like. Were you proud? Yeah, it was a party. In this particular moment from 5 to 6:30 p.m. on Thursday night or whatever it was in the office, it was a party. Like it was a office party. People were not dancing on tables. We're not, there was not loud music, but folks were thrilled. It took years to launch the network. When you work for Mr. Combs, part of the job, no matter if you're close to him or not, he has an extremely infectious vibration. I mean, you are around him, you feel his excitement, you feel what he feels, and he's very adept at projecting that. So I think that those things in confluence made people proud, excited, feel like their hard work had paid off, and that they were actually seeing what they were working on coming to life in the marketing place and on television. Did Revolt have a mission? Did you ever see, did you ever use the words, or did you ever hear that word being used? Mission. Vaguely. I don't really, that's okay. I don't want to go through some of the other companies. Excuse me. I want to go through some of the other companies, and we'll come back to some of this. You mentioned Blue Flame. Yes. What did Blue Flame do? My understanding is that Blue Flame provided the marketing service for Ciroc. And Ciroc was a vodka company? Correct. Spirits? Yes. And Sean John was fashion? Correct. And did you have connections that input from what you experienced into all of these businesses? No. From and not from a creative or business perspective, maybe from an administrative perspective. Okay. So let's talk about that part of it. The administrative perspective. What administratively did you do for Revolt? I personally did not do very much. Brian did an incredible amount. So I had a calendar of due dates, of budgets, of creative proposals, recommendations, you name it. Pitch that needed to be adhered, sufficed by certain dates. So I made sure that these things were in front of him if he wasn't looking at them or neglecting them or prioritizing something else. I would make sure that he got to them in time. And how about for Blue Flame, administrative or other responsibilities? Not too much? Not really. Most of your efforts were geared at which companies? Ciroc. Like as far as Combs' trips to Norway and like the relationships with Diageo executives, making sure that those meetings were straight, making sure that all of the transportation and all of the administrative stuff. I'm failing to remember the two. There were two men who led the Ciroc relationship on Diageo, and I can't remember either of their names right now. Give the jury a little bit. What is Diageo? Diageo is an enormous spirits company. It's owned dozens of liquor brands. That was a household name, like Johnny Walker and Ciroc and numerous others. What was the connection between any of Mr. Combs' companies and Diageo from what you understood? Mr. Combs certainly was the face of Ciroc vodka brand, and I think he had a lucrative financial interest in it as well. And so my understanding is that this all obviously came to me to be before I was there, and he set up an in-house marketing agency to come up with great ideas to market Ciroc. So he was sort of marketing face. He was the marketing face of Ciroc. Yeah, I mean, publicly, he was the whole face of it. But yeah, got it. Now, when you were working as Mr. Combs' executive assistant, fair to say that you were trying to figure out what sort of innovations, what sort of things you could do to make that company work better every day. And tell us some of the things that you did to try to bring that about. I mean, I did that. I think I think that the checklists were a big one, though I certainly didn't invent that. Someone suggested to me have after I didn't have them that I should make them. That that made my day a hell of a lot easier. It was really repetitive. It was understanding that Mr. Combs' movements were going to look alike. So, for example, if he said he was ready to leave the house, that meant to me that we would probably have between 3 and 5 minutes before we were going to leave the house. It was about picking up those little things, understanding just the kind of, getting closer to him and understanding what he meant by what he was saying and what he wanted. And sometimes he would ask for things where he actually wanted something else. And you kind of needed to decipher to get through. I kind of refer to it as like an out of classroom educational experience because it's not like something you would learn in school, but it was tremendously edifying. You mentioned a checklist. What was the checklist? I had a checklist of for each of the bags. I had checklists for his toiletries in the bathroom. It was a very, very bad look on me if he wanted something from the bag and it wasn't in the bag. So once I screwed up that a couple times. I realized that I could never screw that up again. Did you remember something called the Executive Leadership Think Tank? Not by that name, no. Can I show you the witness? Can I show the witness something that may or may not refresh the recollection? Okay, defense admits exhibits. There's a binder near you. Yes, there it is. I can't read that by a long shot. This is what Agnifilo is saying. Okay, so Kaplan responds. It says U.S. District Court, Southern District. I'm not sure. Okay, the court interjects. You don't need to read it. Can you look at the back of that, sort of towards the back? That's what Agnifilo was asking him. Can I just do this? Can I just hand this to you? The court says, yeah, that's easier. You may approach. Okay, so they're trying to get their logistics going. Guys, I'm trying to finish up. I only have like 15 minutes, so I'm going to try to do my best to get through this, but if I don't, I might finish the rest as a pre-recorded, okay? And then I'll label it so you guys know where to go watch the ending of this, okay? Agnifilo, I think everybody has a copy now except me. Thank you. I'm handing you something that purely is something to refresh your recollection. If it's refreshed your recollection, it does. Do me a favor, take whatever. You don't have to read the whole thing. Take a look at it, see what it is. If it refreshes your recollection, look at it as long as you can, as long as you want to. And when you're done looking at it, please look back at me. And that will let me know that you're done reading. So, is your recollection refreshed? Yeah, yes. I don't remember calling it a think tank. I remember calling it an offsite. But the rest of it, yeah, totally. You said you remember it as being an offsite. Yes. What do you remember? What's an offsite? An offsite usually is when you take members of a business. In this case, it was all of the executive leaders to somewhere that is not the office to do bonding activities or engage in things that you may not have in like a regular business week. And it's meant to build relationships and glean insight into how to make a business run more smoothly or become more profitable. What, if any, role did you have in that process? I planned the whole thing and put the whole thing together and invite everyone, and made all of the reservations and created and printed all the material. And this was a big project for me. I'm going to ask you about a few names, and you're just going to tell me if you remember them or not. If you do remember them, I might ask you a few questions about each person. Sure thing. Do you remember somebody named Tony Abrams? I do. Who is Tony Abrams? He was the CFO of Combs Enterprise. I think it's Abraham. Tony Abraham. Do you know anything about Tony Abraham's background? I had been made to believe that he had some financial issues coming into that role, but that was the only thing I knew about him. Do you know if he went to Harvard Business School? No. That's fine. Kenny Burns. Yes. Who's Kenny Burns? Kenny Burns was a friend of Mr. Combs who came in to work at Revolt. Do you know what he did at Revolt? Not really. He was like a promoter or a talent person. Not exactly. No. Fair enough. I might say this wrong, but I think you said it was before Keith Clickscales. Correct. Who is Keith Clickscales? He was the CEO of Revolt. CEO of Revolt? Yes. And James Cruz? James Cruz, Mr. Combs' manager. What did James Cruz do? He was Combs' manager. As the manager, what did you see Mr. Cruz do? He was responsible for Mr. Combs' musical performances and club appearance, and essentially his career as an artist. Neil Dominique. Yes, Neil worked at Revolt while I was there. I also knew that he was one of Combs' assistants before me. You talked about Christina Quorum, KK, right? Now you said you and KK had a friendship. Is that fair? Is that a fair way to put it? We had a very close professional working relationship. Yeah. How much interaction? I could call her KK. That's how you called her. I called her Christina, but whatever you want. Then that's what I'll call her. Tell the jury about your relationship between you and Christina. Well, she was my immediate boss. Certainly in the first 6 months, I was there and she told me what to do, when to do it. I learned how to do the job very much from her guidance. I talked to her more. I talked to her more than I talked to any other individual on the staff. We certainly bonded over the times that we spent together, which was many hours in different locations and late nights and things like that. I want to focus you on something that you talked about the government before you sat down. You said that at some point you spoke to Christina about the violence that you saw, correct? Correct. And if I remember your answer right, I think you said that Christina was disappointed and saddened, correct? Correct. And that she had, and that's what she expressed to you in the conversation you had with her, right? Correct. Okay. And there's no endorsement or even indifference about the news you had told her. She was saddened by it, right? Yes. And she was disappointed in Mr. Combs. Is that right? Yes. As were you? Yes. You and Christina had a conversation when you said this. What I saw, you told her what you saw, and you were disappointed. And even more than disappointed, I was sad. You were sad. And part of the reason you were sad, and tell me if it's right. I'm sorry for doing this way because it's sad, right? Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. Also, you loved working there. I loved working there. Fair enough. You liked working there. You didn't want to leave. I did not want to leave. And you left because of what you had told the jury that you saw, correct? So, from your perspective, and tell me if this is right, Mr. Combs' temper, what you saw, from what you saw, did not help his business. No, it did not. It hurt his business. Yes, it did. Among other things, it prompted a really hardworking, dedicated, beloved person, meaning yourself, to leave the company. Correct. And you leaving the company because of what you saw, you have no reason to think that that helps his business, right? No. You were effective, right? I tried to be. You worked very hard, right? I've never worked harder in my life. You never worked harder in your life. And they always say, don't ask a question you don't know the answer to. Here I go. Looking back at it, was that a good thing or a bad thing? I can't answer that question. It's proven to be one of the most complicated pieces of my life. Okay, I survived. Yep. But looking back, you're proud of the work you did. Yes. You're proud of how hard you worked, right? Yes. You're proud of you were being asked to do a great deal of work, and you did a great deal of work, right? Very proud of that. You're proud of the quality of the work that you did, right? Yes. And Mr. Combs at that time has been very difficult, right? Yes. When he wanted, what was it? 1 gallon of water, you brought 2 gallons of water. He didn't need to yell at you, right? Well, it was 2 gallons of 2 half gallons. I'm sorry. I figured I'd keep one, and then he'd go through it, and I give him the next one full already. He'd keep the count. You had a theory, okay? That must have been startling. It was very startling. You're a young man, right? I'm a young man, and this is a god among men talking to me. And you didn't like that he spoke to you that way, right? Did not. It made you feel bad, right? Yeah. You remember all of these years later? Yes, sir. But you said the words I'm going to ask you about. There was something about him that was inspirational, highly. Tell me what that means for you. He didn't just push me to my deepest depth. He introduced me to the depths that I did not know that I had. It helped me not only professionally, but that piece helped me grow up as a man. And when you realize it wasn't right for your own moral standards to stay, that was deeply disappointing, to put it mildly. Yeah, my friends told me that this was my Harvard and I was blowing it. Yet I'm going to compliment. Yeah, I'm about to compliment you. You have a strong moral compass, correct? I think so. And your moral compass told you that it was the best thing for you to leave. Yes, and you did. Yes. You still wish Mr. Combs well on his birthday, right? I do. You remember his birthday, November 4th. And that's because you're working at the company was really special for you. It was a once in a lifetime opportunity. What happened from the steps of a Biggie's house? You said something happened from the steps of Biggie's house. If I remember correctly, Mr. Combs was on the air, and the first shot of Revolt launching the network with the microphone in his hand from the front steps of Biggie's house behind him. And Biggie has come up a few times in this trial. I neglected to ask who Biggie was. Who is Biggie? Who are we talking about? Notorious B.I.G. He was very famous in the 90s, who unfortunately passed away. When were you working at when you were working at Combs Enterprise, you had a number of holidays that were paid holidays that you didn't have to come to work, right? Yes. You were working at Combs Enterprise yesterday. Would you have had to come to work? It only just occurred to me that I would not have had to come to work yesterday because I think it was Biggie's birthday. And that was a holiday for Combs Enterprise. Let me stop right here. For those that didn't know, on May 21st, May 22nd, when or 21st, when Kaplan was on the stand, it was Biggie's birthday. The first day he was there on the stand, it was Biggie's birthday. So this is why this comes into question here and it's being asked. Okay, that's correct. So if you worked at Combs Enterprise with the subpoena aside, you wouldn't have had to come to work because May 21st is Biggie's birthday and that's a paid holiday. Correct. I interpreted my own list. Ezekiel Leah, what was Ezekiel's job? He was one of the four counterparts that I had while I was in Mr. Combs' employ as his assistant. And Ellie Maroon, who is Ellie? He was or is it Ellie or Eli? I think it's Ellie. He was on Mr. Combs' management team. And Natalia Mora, who's that? That was Mr. Combs' publicist. And Dia Sims, she ran Ciroc. And I think De Leon too. Actually, no. She did Ciroc, and I think Andrew Massini did. I don't know if he's even on this list, but yeah, no, she was the head of Ciroc. And David Tape Scott's, yeah, I don't remember what he did. That's fair enough. I'm going to ask you, and you look at the memo that you wrote just to refresh your recollection. I'm going to ask you about a few things, and you tell me what you remember about them. All right. Do you remember wanting to convey to the people in the company you should have Fortune 500 spirits? Yes. And what did you mean by the term Fortune 500 spirits? Best in the class. And in the case of Combs Enterprise, just because it's technically kind of like a startup holding company, it would still operate in a way that was a very successful heritage business for many years with best practices and the greatest people, which is always the most important thing to Mr. Combs, was to have the best people. And fair to say, from what you saw, there really was a culture of excellence. Is that fair to say? Certainly in his executive office. And you were part of that, right? Yes. I want to ask you what you mean by excellence in the executive office. Is that people worked very hard, right? Everyone, not just you, but the whole executive office, right? Yes. People work very long hours, correct? Correct. And you and others tried to make the company more efficient in every way. Okay, right? Correct. You tried to save money when you could, right? Always. That's part of any business, right? Try to make as much money as you could within a reason. Yes. And even aside from all of that, having worked there, did you have a sense of sort of innovation, something that you were involved in something new and special, even just aside from the business component of it? Is that a confusing question? Yes. Thank you. Let me ask a different question. Aside from the bottom line financial issue, was there anything that you saw in the company that made it special? Oh yeah, I mean the company was comprised of all ambitious, young, creative people. I think Combs Enterprise, and because Mr. Combs being an artist and is and his success in the music industry, it attracted a lot of people who also wanted to be artists and maybe wouldn't become a musician, but could become a creative graphic designer or a producer or a type of business that Mr. Combs had really availed themselves to, like having a lot of different positions. You could also be a finance person, or you could be a creative person, a creative, or you could be, not necessarily a scientist, but you could be one of the members, one of the number of things. You could be an attorney, and there, like, would be a place for somewhere in the greater ecosystem. And I think that was super inviting to people. I also think that people who applied to work at Combs Enterprise really wanted to work there, really gave a crap about it. All right, I got to stop right here, y'all. Whoo-wee. So I'm gonna finish this as a recorded, uploaded video. Whew. You watching from the beginning? Okay, thank you. You guys, thank you again for the support. I really appreciate it. I have to go. I've been here for almost 2 hours. Yeah, you could be an attorney. You could. Sounds like it was a very ecosystem type of friendly company. But here's the question. This is a question that everybody got to ask themselves. Why is the defense asking these kinds of questions to somebody that only worked there for, I think, a little over a year? That's the question. Ask yourselves, if you're watching the replay, think about the questions that the defense is asking. And we're not done. I got to review them. Okay. So I'm going to do a pre-recorded to finish this. Keep an eye out for the pre-recorded. Okay. There's going to be another pre-recorded that's going to hopefully drop tonight. Excuse me. Don Richard's cross-examination with the defense. I have about an hour and a half of editing to do. So I'm working on that, but I'm dropping it tonight. And then I have more recordings to do. So we're working overtime. Guys, do me a favor, hit the like button. Shout out to everybody. Hey, and shout out to everybody that joined us from Ticket TV. Shout out to Ticket for the shout out. I appreciate it. I will see you guys later. I got to go. I got to go. I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys. Hit the like. Bye, guys.